Yes, Morse 3, I emailed you. I also think it's funny that I can't not call you Morse 3. Just send it, should be on the top.
Alright.
It's pretty much the same template as last week.
Okay.
We're going to stay with the same. We're going to take your action step kind of to the next level. So some of the action steps we worked on this year that you're having still continued success with is aligning the curriculum to the content of the IA and like the rigor of the IA. The types of questions you're asking are very different than the beginning of the year, so that is awesome, and you saw that in your 53% proficiency. What? Another thing we worked on was asking questions during the activities and labs. This is like kind of an ongoing project because you're taking your labs from last year and figuring out, okay, what questions do I really need to ask them when they're done? And last week we worked on drafting exemplars to exit tickets and then grading against those exemplars. So what are some things that have been going well in regards to your action steps? Your previous action steps.
My previous action steps. I think what's going well is actually like the type of questions that I'm asking, trying to see like, especially like with the upcoming IA, how especially like on the objective that I'm working on is on the topographic maps and the geographs, trying to make sure that the students understand the difference in intervals. The reasoning behind that is that the reasoning behind me concentrating on that is just I want them to be sure of that everything works in a loop, that the number that they're actually seeing is the actual interval, and I need them not to add more than what they're given.
So I heard you say my questions. For example, I'm focusing on intervals for topographic maps. I need them to add more. I need them to not add more than what they were given. So like I'm hearing that like you are, and I can put this on your strength, like you are focusing on the details of how to answer IA questions, like the thinking skills.
Yeah.
And the details behind the content. In the past, you would have
I would have just moved
not
on.
named the exact details. You would have gone on to a new topic altogether. And I think that you are starting to master this art of going deeper instead of farther.
Mm-hmm.
So what else has been going well?
I think because of the fact that I've been focusing on the types of exemplars for their exit tickets, I'm able to see where the misconceptions lie and actually hone in on those misconceptions to make sure that they're actually getting the correct answer. So focusing on right is right as opposed to going, okay, well, they get the basics. Like I want them to make sure that they're getting the question.
Great. And
another thing I noticed was that when you give the kids a simple question, like, what do you see? They think it's a trick question. Like they think they're being tricked into giving a response when the response was already given to them. Like it's like if they see the picture and the answer's in the picture, they go away from the answer and give you something totally different as opposed
they don't
to
trust their own common sense.
They don't trust it at all.
Okay. So how have you seen this, like, we've been working a lot thinking about content and thinking skills, and what has been the impact on the data in your classroom?
Like the data's actually been really good. Like it's actually been showing that they're getting the concepts. Not as much as I've seen it on this quiz. This quiz, the data wasn't so well at all. When I was looking at the responses, they weren't following the direction of, I need you to give an answer in each box for the constructed response. So we were getting away from using the actual paper and going towards more of using the actual computer to make the responses. They kept putting the whole kitchen sink into one question box, so because I was sticking to the direction of no, it needs to be in every box, the scores wound up becoming lower because I wasn't gonna go back to the first two questions. I needed them to stick to the direction.
That is really powerful, because in the past you would have given them more grace.
Yeah.
And I heard you say the quiz, this data wasn't good. I was sticking to the directions, and I think that's major.
Like it's
maybe
like,
in the past you would have
yeah.
graded it a little more leniently,
Yeah,
and so now you're seeing like, they can do it, and I have to hold them to it.
yeah,
That's what I'm hearing. And so I have noticed that you are holding kids more to the expectations. For example, you just said it, like the boxes on the Illuminate,
mhm,
and using specific vocabulary. You have driven home the concept of intervals, for example, which was not a detail included in last year's plan.
yeah,
I also just want to name, like, one of your greatest strengths is that you are constantly reflecting and revising. You never settle, even though you have plans from last year.
mm,
And you have received feedback about alignment and exemplars, an exit ticket, and applied it moving forward. I never have to tell you something twice. Like when we talked about, for example, like when you have an exit ticket, make an exemplar and grade from it. I tell you that once, and now that's like your standard practice, which is great. That's something to revisit, and I appreciate that about you, and I think I'm just excited about the direction your class is taking and all the data. So
I'm
we're
like,
gonna.
yeah, I just need to beat that 18% from last year. I'm like, I need to, I was like, I need to see that what I'm doing is worthwhile. Like, it's just like, I need to punch that home. Like, it's like, am I doing the right steps?
Right, and that they can actually for real write those exemplars.
Yeah.
So like we're going to grade even stricter than usual.
Yeah, I know. And
Let's
I have
take
to,
a look at the exit ticket on that note and make an exemplar.
yeah, because,
Because you said today they're redoing part of a.
they were redoing, so pretty much it was like redoing the questions that they didn't answer. They didn't even get to these questions, and I was concentrating more on 16 through 19.
Okay, so let's make an exemplar for 16 through 19. This is yours.
This is mine. It wasn't quite exemplified.
Okay, so let's make great. So make it an exemplar. I'm gonna give you a minute to do that.
All right. Because it's not even RTQ'd. I'm like, just to be honest.
So make it beautiful. So because we know your kids can meet that bar.
Okay. So. This is fine. Okay.
Hold on one second. My computer's going bonkers.
Mine just keeps restarting, so
What? That's the
I'm
deal.
like, I'm only able to restart.
So at first you had short answers.
Hmm.
Then what criteria did you use to make them exemplars? What did you add?
Well, I had to make sure that I restated the question in my responses, so that I would know that my students should have restated the questions in their responses. except for question 18 and 19, which is just asking the question and didn't have space for a restatement.
So before you said, which side of Center Hill is the steepest slope? How do you know? And you just said south lines are closer together. What does the lines closer together, how does that show you?
When lines are closer together in this area, because what we're doing here, it's like what some students did. Ooh,
Okay.
what some students did was that they'll go and they'll actually like write the compass on their maps, right? And as they're writing their compasses on their maps, as they're looking at Center Hill at this point right here, because this is what we were looking at, when we look at the compass, obviously the top is going to be north and this is going to be south.
Mm-hmm.
The south portion, if the lines are closer together, that means that it's a steeper portion. So the closer the lines are together, the steeper that it is. The further apart, it's going to be a gentle slope,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it was asking which had
So
the
the key
steepest slope.
things they need to say are what?
The key things, they would have to say the direction,
South. Okay.
South.
What else?
and they would have to explain that lines, how do they know that it's steep? It's because the lines are closer together.
Okay. And number 17. In what general direction is Elm Brook flowing? How do you know?
And this is Elm Brook right over here, right? Like if you look at the flow, the ocean is right here. Anything that's in a directional purpose has to go the opposite direction. Water always goes in the opposite direction of where the flow is on
Mhm.
contour maps.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you'll have students that might say it is going in southeast, right, because they see it right here, because they see the ocean, that would be a wrong direction. It would have to go in the northeast direction of the opposite. So it's like, so Elm Brook is flowing towards the northeast direction. Flows are in the opposite direction of the map.
Wait. So how do you know that again? I don't understand that. Explain to me again.
Okay, so
I gotta know it. If I'm struggling, we gotta make sure.
okay, so when we started out this unit,
Mm-hmm.
right, and we talked about water flowing,
Mm-hmm.
when we discussed the flow of water, water flows in the opposite direction of the map. So even if the ocean is at the bottom portion of the map, water flows in the opposite.
Is that
Right,
always
because
true?
because this is going, Elm Brook would be the river, so the river currents would be going towards, like, there's two different currents, so it's like there's up and down. When you're looking at the currents, it would go in the opposite.
How do you know that?
That's what I learned. I read on it.
Okay.
I'm like, so yeah. So it goes in the opposite direction, so it would be like a northeast.
Is there a question on the IA like this?
They should put They should be a question like that though. That's something that should be
Number
added.
17 is not on the IA.
No. But it was one of those questions that went back to something that we learned previously,
Which was what?
which was going back towards our, like, water, when we were talking about like how water flows and it goes into an actual circular
Like-
motion for water cycle,
For like
runoff and stuff like that.
erosion
and
and stuff
erosion.
like
So this will actually come back towards when
that.
we're
Oh
talking
yeah, the
about
flow.
the
river
flow of a
motion.
river.
Okay.
So this is just me like spiraling it in.
And explain to me again how you know it's northeast. This is where I'm stuck.
Okay, here's the compass.
You're so patient with me. What did
It's
I teach you?
okay.
Keep going.
All right, so here's the compass. We have, never eat soggy waffles.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so as we're looking at this map, right, which way on this map, like that we've placed this compass here, is the brook? It's right here, pointing towards northeast, because we placed it right within the ocean.
What you just did right there with the pen was very effective. Have you modeled it that way for kids?
So they know, like, it's just like, so, like,
So we're on to something here, okay? Because when we're grading these in a minute, yep, you have time still.
do we?
Yeah.
Okay.
If we have kids that are not getting this would be a great way to reteach it.
To reteach
Is
it like that?
To model it.
To model that like that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, so 18, which hill has the highest elevation? Center Hill, and that's because the lines are so close together.
Well, no, the highest elevation, the interval goes in 20 feet. So if we looked at the intervals, that's 200, this would be 220, right? 1, 120, 140, 120. Which one had the highest number?
Again, if they're missing this, that's a model. Since it's a diagram-based question, it's a model.
Yeah.
And then 19 was the approximate elevation of the highest hill, 220. Great.
220.
Okay, so let's grade against this exemplar. So we're gonna stick with the same action step this week,
Okay.
which is draft detailed.
Detard.
Sorry, Joe. Draft detailed exemplars for the exhibit and grade against them. Okay.
All right. Alright, so south side, steepest slope, lines are closer together. Northeast. You see if they even did the
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
to show northeast.
They drew their compass. Mhm.
They drew their compass. Center hill.
What is it? Northeast direction because the water flows in the opposite direction. Okay. Center hill, 220. Great.
Let's see.
The south side of Center Hill of the nope, because they didn't say because the lines. What did they say for number 2? Northeast, because so they didn't
Yeah.
have their reasons.
They
So I
didn't
would
have
put
their
the little
reason.
note to the kid, like,
I'll
or
go
just
like
circle
this.
how do you know on each one even. That's a bummer. And now as we're grading, let's put them into a pile of got it, didn't get it.
Okay. Alright, so I'll just put this one right here. This one didn't get it, obviously. She just didn't do it.
This is our exemplar.
220, Umbrook is flowing northeast, opposite direction. Close together.
Mm-hmm. Never eat soggy waffles. We need to tell that to Fox for geography in 5th grade.
What is another one? Remember I taught history for a little bit, so it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
they have these little ones. Hands are closer together. Nope.
And why is that one wrong?
It was supposed to be northeast, not just north.
Good. Yep.
Yes. 4.
We didn't even make 3. I would say 3 out of 4. I would put in the middle, and
Yeah.
sometimes what I would do is like look and see did they all miss the same question, the 3 out of 4, because that really tells you a lot.
Because the lines are closer together. Northeast direction because the water flowed in the opposite direction. Center hill, 220.
This is big that they're getting 18 and 19 right. Stupid sticker.
Because 18 and 19 is the ones that, like, those will
That's
come
the
up
questions
again.
we looked at last week when we looked at exit tickets together.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But these are also,
It's okay.
these are
Right,
also
you're
going to
doing
hit
fine.
them again in the IA.
Mm-hmm.
Steepest slope south.
Let me see. Center Hill is the steepest slope.
South.
Center south because of the center hill is the steepest slope. They didn't say
See
anything about
why,
lines
yeah.
close together.
Northeast direction, water flows in the opposite direction. Center hill, 220. That's a lot for this girl. For her. Like, I'm just like, wow, that's amazing.
If you hold the bar, they can do it.
I'm like, that's amazing. Side of the hill, the steepest is the south side. You spelled compass wrong.
It's funny.
But that's wrong. He didn't,
Why is it wrong?
because he didn't explain how the lines are closer together.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. Going hard, Miss Morse.
I know. That's what
That's
they're
good.
like.
It's good. That's what's gonna pay off.
North and northeast.
I'm gonna
Water's
grab my
going to
computer
flow.
board while you're doing that.
As the water flows in the opposite direction. Center Hill 220. Lines are close together. Flows in the opposite direction. Just makes me feel like I did something. I don't want to get it. They get it. I just suck because they don't know how to type. Great.
We can
It
work
was
on
the
that. That's
direction.
a skill.
That's a skill.
Skills.
Okay.
We can work on.
No. No. 2 out of 4.
So we only have about 5 minutes left. I know you
Okay.
have more of a stack, but let's take a look at those ones who got 3 out of 4. Those are all the ones who got it.
Yeah, these are all the ones
Look
that
how
got
much bigger the got it stack is than the not got it.
it. Yeah.
Hey.
And then the ones that are 3 out of 4 is just by the actual explanation.
When you push for right as right answers in these full responses, then they're able to answer. If they can write a full thought, they can answer questions related to any detail in that answer. Like all of these are pieces to a much bigger response. So this kid missed.
How do you know?
How do you know?
This one was
How do you know?
how do you know? Direction.
So that's different. But how do you know? And like, what about those ones who didn't get it all?
Was direction and how do you know?
How do you know?
How do you know? Didn't respond at all. And
How do you know?
how do you know?
So what's the gap here with your students?
So the gap is the explanation.
There you go. How can you move forward and push for that?
I'm gonna have to push the RTQ portion, just making sure that they're restating their question and actually responding to what that question is.
I would disagree that RTQ doesn't necessarily make them explain how they know.
No? Okay.
How often do you ask, how do you know?
I don't. I haven't. In the past I haven't. And now it's like, now I'm just like pushing for it. Like I'm pushing for them to respond to how did they get to that
And are you
answer.
asking them that orally also?
Yes.
Like in okay. So,
So like I'm asking them verbally to like give me an explanation.
right. And so,
So now it's like having them actually write out the explanation. They're like, man, she's really pushing us.
so you're going to continue this action step of draft detailed exemplars for executives and grade against it, and also push students when they're responding orally to hold the bar of that exemplar. How do you know? How do you know?
Yeah. It's all right. Like the question, like asking them about a depression. They're like, I'm like, how do you know it's a depression? And they're just like, it took them a
But
minute.
that's where they
But
need
it
to
took
be.
them a minute, and one of the kids
That's
was
where they
like,
need to be.
because it has lines. I was like, exactly.
That's where they need to be. I think you gotta go get your babies.
I probably do.
So that's a big thing, is grading against that exemplar, making them speak against that exemplar. How do you know? How do you know? Details, details, details. And another thing that I'm not letting you off the hook for
Okay,
is
what?
positively and specifically praising.
Okay. I know. I get it.
You gotta make them feel loved. I praise you. You praise your kids.
Give them some love.
I'm gonna call you Meanie Morse 3.
Meaning Morse 3.
On that note, I'm gonna end the video.